The Browns are clearly sending a message when it comes to Shedeur Sanders. I'll tell you what that is coming up next on the Locked On Browns podcast.
You are Locked On Browns, your daily Cleveland Browns podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, Dog Pound? I'm Spencer German, your host of the Locked On Browns podcast, and proudly covering your Cleveland Browns each and every single day in the land and on the road. The Browns are really making Shedeur Sanders earn it. Plus, my takeaways from the Browns' open session of OTAs on Wednesday, and where in the world is Myles Garrett? I do want to thank you for being in every day with the Locked On Browns podcast, making us your first listen every single day. Remember, you can find Cleveland Browns content with Locked On Browns every week, Monday through Friday, guaranteed, with bonus content on some weekends as well, and it's totally free to you. Just make sure you hit that subscribe button wherever it is that you listen to your podcast, and of course, the Locked On Browns YouTube channel. You can also get involved in the show by sharing your thoughts on anything we discussed today in the comments section. This is your team, so be part of the conversation every single day. And one of the most noticeable things to come out of Wednesday's practice of OTAs out on the field in Berea there, it's, again, OTAs, just helmets, no pads, no hitting, no contact. It's a lot of, lighter stuff, but there are 11 on 11s. There are 7 on 7s. There are some of these drills where you're getting to run plays against, somebody lining up in front of you. And the biggest thing that stood out, especially as far as the quarterbacks are concerned, which is the competition that's taking center stage, is the fact that Shedeur Sanders took a whopping 0 snaps during 11 on 11 drills. That is a mere fact. This is not slander. This is not me making this up. He did not take a single snap with 11 on 11s on the day that media was there present to watch this all unfold out on the practice field. So this doesn't mean he can't be the starter week 1. It doesn't mean that he is, destined to flop in the NFL. None of those things are true. It's just what was witnessed on Wednesday at practice. And so I think, though, what's interesting is, this feels by design. Everything with Shedeur feels by design for the Browns. Let me explain. Back at rookie minicamp, he didn't talk until the second day of rookie minicamp. Most of the other rookies went on the first day. They saved Shedeur and Dillon Gabriel for day 2, and they both kind of went together and talked, after each other. I thought, that was kind of interesting. It was a kind of a testament to, we know this guy is a star, but he's going on day 2 after all his other teammates pretty much speak. He also isn't throwing in team drills at OTAs, at least the day that we're there to see it. And I think that's important. I don't know for sure if he's doing that, if that's the case every day, that he's not taking 11 on 11 reps on other days. But the fact that they picked the day when the media is there to not have him throw during 11 on 11s, I found interesting. They are trying to send this message and set this precedent early on here that he is going to earn everything. It at least appears right now that he is the 4th guy on this depth chart. That's not necessarily surprising. I mean, let's face it, guys. The Browns passed on Shedeur 6 times before they finally took him in the 5th round. They were totally expecting they were totally fine coming into this season without somebody like Shedeur Sanders on the roster up until they felt like they couldn't pass it up anymore in the 5th round, and so they made the move to get him. That's what we have to keep in mind about this entire thing. So there is, there are some things there that he has to work on. And I'm not saying he's not participating in those drills at all, but the day that we're there for him not to be, I think, is the Browns being strategic in the way that they roll Shedeur Sanders out there. They're not trying to lean into the stardom that he has and make it seem like just because he's this name and this figure and all that he's guaranteed anything. And I also think, to a degree, Shedeur's okay with that. Shedeur has said nothing but the right things since he's been here about the idea that he's competing. And I think he had a quote last week about he doesn't really talk to his family much right now because he's so focused on just playing and learning the playbook and getting out there on the field. Those things matter. He is focused on trying to do his part to win this job and get better and improve and prove to himself that he can do this at a high level. It's not a negative thing that the Browns are handling him this way. I think he actually embraces it. And I think that's the best thing that you can get from any of this is the idea that there's a player who is, being told, hey, you got to earn it. And he's taking that and running with it. He's not feeling like he's obligated to be given anything. And he's going to try to get it himself. Now, Kevin Stefanski, again, has said that they're rotating guys daily. And so I'm sure he's getting worked in on certain days that maybe we're just not there for. But on Wednesday, it was Flacco and Pickett taking the majority of team reps. Gabriel got about 5 snaps with the 11-on-11 stuff. They were running simultaneous 7-on-7 drills. And so I can tell you in those settings, Shedeur was with kind of like the 3s and the 4s, same with Dylan Gabriel for most of that. And Flacco and Pickett were with the 1s and the 2s. And they were running these 7-on-7 drills where you got like receivers and running backs going up against like linebackers and DBs. And what I'll tell you, I tried to bounce between both fields because they're on separate fields. Shedeur does look like he's already made improvements in his game. His mechanics, he seems a little tighter in his upper body where he's not like his arms aren't like so loose. He looks like he's working on his footwork. And as a result, it felt like he was throwing, or it looked like he was throwing an even better football than he already did. So what I can tell you is that in a month's time since he was drafted into the NFL to now, where he's out on the field doing work with the entirety of the team as part of OTAs, he looks like a player that is already improving, that is already trying to be a sponge and learn and grow and develop and be this and embrace the newness of the NFL and everything that comes with it. And he's taking the coaching well. And that's the best thing and the most important thing that you can ask for. I said it on Tuesday or on Wednesday's show. It's not about who's taking reps, where, and when. It's about what they're doing with those reps and how they're growing and developing. If Shedeur continues making those strides, if Shedeur continues getting better and he improves his mechanics even more, and he's showing that that the playbook is sticking and he's executing everything perfectly, he's going to climb the depth chart. He's going to have a chance to play. So that's what it's about for him. I think it's great that he's focused purely on that and he's not letting all the outside stuff affect him. And now it's just about like seeing what that path kind of looks like for him as he continues to learn within this Browns structure that he's found himself in. So it's all good signs, but I do think strategically the Browns are presenting this sense of Shedeur's got to earn it. And that's Kevin Stefanski's message all the time anyway. He constantly talks about nobody's guaranteed everything. Everyone has to earn their role. Everyone has to earn their job. And so the fact that he's embraced that, the fact that that's what they're doing, I think makes a lot of sense. When the media's there, they're sort of saying, hey, this is where he's at. He's got to work his way up this ladder, if you will. He's not promised anything. Now, I will say from the quarterback standpoint, because I know this is what you really want as Browns fans, you want to know how they looked. I think of the quartet of quarterbacks, Shedeur looked good in his setting, which again was with the 3s and 4s. I thought Gabriel showed some nice promise in those settings as well. In his 11-on-11 reps he did get, it wasn't great. There was a couple incompletions. Some of them were just handoff plays. There was a ball batted down at the line by Mason Graham, which is a really nice play that Mason made. But I thought of the two veterans, Pickett started really well in 7-on-7s and then didn't look quite as crisp in 11-on-11s and throughout the rest of practice. Flacco, I think, looked the best of everybody. But what I would say is that's to be expected because Flacco is the one quarterback on this roster that doesn't have a learning curve. There's no learning curve for him. He knows the system. He knows the play calls. He knows what they want to do. He knows what things are supposed to look like. And he's got 17 years of quarterbacking experience under his belt to sort of just be able to make these adjustments, I think, a little bit quicker than others. So Flacco looked good. He was throwing some nice darts to Jerry Jeudy at a number of points. He ended practice by throwing a nice pass to Harold Fannin Jr. in red zone for a touchdown. So it was a good day for Flacco. And I think everybody else is still sort of picking up some things. Even Kenny Pickett, who, while he said this offense reminds him more of what he was doing in Philly last year, still has, a little bit of a learning curve because he's never played in Kevin Stefanski's system specifically. Other takeaways from Wednesday's OTA practice, including why Dawand Jones may just be the team's left tackle of the future. I'll talk about it coming up next on the Locked On Browns podcast. The NBA playoffs are in full swing. We already have one ticket punch to the NBA Finals, and every night delivers highlight-worthy performances, major momentum shifts, and can't miss moments. Whether it's a game-winning shot or a breakout player, there has never been a better time to get in on the action. FanDuel makes it easy to stay in the game before tip-off and live. With player props, performance trends, and same-game parlays, fans have more ways than ever to play smart and win big. If you've got a read on who's heating up, maybe Tyrese Halliburton, you're banking on him having a big night against the Knicks in a game 5 to potentially punch their ticket to the NBA Finals. Why not back it up with the same game parlay? And you can actually take live prop bets during the game and pair them all together to form a same game parlay and cash out with even more money by the time the game concludes. New to FanDuel, it's the perfect time to sign up. Just head to FanDuel.com, place your first $5 bet, and if it wins, you will get $200 in bonus bets. Make every moment more with FanDuel. It's the official sports betting partner of the NBA. All right, so the quarterbacks obviously are the big topic du jour throughout the OTAs and throughout the offseason, as we know. But that doesn't mean there weren't other things to pay attention to and notice about the Browns practices or the practice session that took place on Wednesday with the media in attendance. And I think one of the top things that stood out beyond the quarterbacks was just Dawand Jones. Dawand Jones is going to have a legitimate shot at winning the starting left tackle job and maybe even holding it down for the future, like years to come, if he can develop into the player that they believe he can be. He looks healthy for the first time in a really long time. If you remember last year at this time, Dawand was trying to get back out on the field as much as he could and sort of play through or practice through his knee injury that he had suffered that needed arthroscopic surgery. So he was still dealing with the remnants of that. He was out of shape. He wasn't really primed and ready for football. This year, he seems like he is, in the right shape, the right state of mind. And he looked like he was super, super healthy, even after the broken fibula that he went through and is recovered from. There were some individual things that he sat out, but when they were doing team stuff and he was out there at left tackle, he moved really, really well. His drop kick was solid. He was getting lateral very nicely, and he was able to sort of show his dominance and his strength on run plays and even in pass protection, getting to the next level on certain situations. He looks good. And I think it's a good sign of things to come for Dawand Jones as he tries to solidify that left tackle spot that's been a carousel of players in recent years because of injuries, but also just a big question mark because you just never knew what you were getting from Jedrick Wills play to play in games. So I thought like Dawand's performance, even in an OTA setting, when again, it's not full pads, there's context there, was solid. And just seeing him healthy is a big, big win for this team as they try to sort of march to the regular season here and fill a major void on their offensive line. They hope he can do it. They hope he's the one to sort of take the reins on that and run with it. So that stood out to me. I think it's a really good start to this offseason program and just practices in general for Jones. I also thought that a couple guys in the defensive line caught my attention. Mason Graham being one of them. I mentioned the batted pass he had against Dylan Gabriel in the sort of final part of 11 on 11s yesterday. He also, though, was a force, getting lateral and trying to stop run plays. He was constantly beating his blocker into the neutral zone and, getting that sort of first jump, which we saw how quick his first step is or his get off is during a lot of the individual work at rookie minicamp. But to see it now, with players lining up in front of him. And again, I know it's not full pads and all that, and that'll be a game changer too. I think he's going to be even better when that's the case and he can be even more physical. But to see him, showing just how good he is at beating guys into at the line of scrimmage and getting, in between blockers and making plays in the backfield, I thought it was a great start and a great statement from him as the number 5 overall pick. Like, hey, I'm here and this is what I can do. So I like that from Mason Graham. He showed some good stuff. Joe Tryon-Shoyinka actually had a really nice moment, like 3 or 4 plays in a row where he was just in the backfield. Now, I want to say he was going against the number 2s. I don't think he was going against Dawand off on the left side of the offensive line, but he was getting past his blocker, making nice moves. He actually got yelled at one point because he got into the backfield so quick and pressured Kenny Pickett and would have had a sack that he actually like kind of bumped into him. And obviously that's a big no-no. You don't touch the quarterback, especially this time of year. And so Kevin Stefanski had to pull him aside and just kind of talk to him because he wanted him to know, you can't do that. And he knew, but it was nice to see that because this competition, as I've talked about this week, for that defensive end spot opposite of Myles Garrett is going to be one of the most notable things to watch outside of the quarterback competition throughout this portion of the program, obviously training camp later on in the summer and in the lead up to the regular season, because they're trying to find somebody to sort of take the reins on that spot, even though it will be a rotation of guys. And I do think Tryon Shoyinka, as a former first-round pick, does have, he has the ability to maybe be the frontline guy to take that spot. But it's him, it's Alex Wright, it's Isaiah McGuire. Alex Wright, by the way, was off on the side doing some stuff on the bike, so he seems to be sort of nursing something there. Kevin Stefanski wouldn't really elaborate after practice. But to see Joe Tryon Shoyinka have like a nice moment and flash a little bit, I thought was a positive thing for the outlook of this defensive line, and especially as we try to assess who's going to be that opposite Myles Garrett defensive end. So we'll see how that sort of shakes out, but a good start for the defensive line, I thought, as well on Wednesday. Harold Fannin Jr., another rookie we'll highlight here. I thought he looked good as this pass catching wide receiver. It is obvious as he gets out there with the full team that he's going to have to add some muscle and some sort of strength to his game. We know he's not the prototypical, ideal tight end body that the NFL teams look for. That's more of David Njoku style, like the 6'5", 240, 250 range. He's more, he's 6'3", 230. So there is room for him to get stronger, but I don't know that in year one it's going to matter so much for him to do that because, he's going to line up in the slot. He's going to go out and run patterns and get open as a pass catcher. And I think we saw the early remnants of that, the early stages of that on Wednesday, with him out there running some really nice routes, making a few plays, including that touchdown I mentioned, the touchdown catch to sort of end practice from Joe Flacco in the end zone during red zone drills. Like that was good to see. And so, yes, like all these rookies, I think the common theme has to be like room for improvement. They're all going to get better. Kevin Stefanski even says that all the time. Like all these guys, we give them some leeway to improve. It's, nobody's a finished product. And I think that's very true. Fannin's going to keep coming along, but we already saw like how they're going to start to use him as a pass catcher, and having him and David Njoku out there together for certain packages is going to be a weapon for this team without question. And then the last thing I was going to say was just the wide receiver room, which the rotations were kind of as expected. Diontae Johnson was not there, which we'll get into coming up, but it was Jerry Jeudy and Cedric Tillman running together. And then that slot guy, without Johnson being with the team yesterday, it was DeAndre Carter, the return specialist, who was oftentimes running out of that slot spot. And then the next group was kind of like Jamari Thrash, Michael Woods, those guys, David Bell. Like those were sort of the names that sort of found themselves in the mix there. And so that's kind of where things are at with the wide receiver room at this juncture as we sort of get the first early stages and look at what this team could look like and how they're going to do things. One player who was not there, Myles Garrett. But I wouldn't worry about it. And I'll explain why coming up next on the Locked On Browns podcast. All right, so I know this time of year we like to take attendance, even though attendance really doesn't matter all that much. And I think a lot of this just comes from the idea that like the players who are showing up this time of year, we like to associate that with them having like an extra desire to be great or an extra desire to help the team. Denzel Ward talked about this last year, like the idea that being at this stage of the offseason program is important to him because he just thinks it's a good representation for his teammates and that getting back into football is something that he wants to do and get and be involved in. And he loves, being just playing football. And I think we hear those things. And then when guys aren't there, we associate it with like, well, those guys just don't care. They don't care. They don't care about the teammates. They're not good leaders. And I think that's patently false. So there is a list of veterans who weren't there. I'll read them off to you. And I'm going to explain why one guy not being there is not the end of the world. But Joe Bitonio wasn't there. Expected. He hasn't really shown up to OTAs the last several seasons. It's just not his jam. Jack Conklin also missing in action. So 2 of your starting offensive linemen weren't there. David Njoku, Greg Newsome II, Diontae Johnson, who's probably the one I'm the most concerned about not being there. And then, of course, yes, the name I didn't mention yet is Myles Garrett. Now, listen, Myles is apparently in Japan right now. He was posting, on his Instagram story. He was at some anime awards and he's doing some stuff out there, and that's fine. Like, he's more than inclined to travel and do his thing. And that's the important thing to keep in mind here. OTAs are optional. They are voluntary. They are not something that players have to be there for. That's mandatory minicamp. I'm assuming Myles Garrett's going to be here for mandatory minicamp. He no longer has a contract dispute with the team. He got that situated this offseason. And I get it. He signed this mega deal this offseason, and there was a lot of talk after that about does he need to be more of a leader now? I think Jimmy Haslam had some quotes about how they're looking to Myles to step up even more in that world now that he signed this contract. And I understand. People expect that from him. When you get the money, when you get paid with great power, or in this case with great money, comes great responsibility. We've talked about it before, though. It's just not him. Myles Garrett is a leader to a point, and I think when he shows up, he commands the room. His teammates listen to him. They understand that, like, he's one of the best players in this league, and that comes with a level of respect already that he's going to garner just from simply being there when he comes on the field, in the meeting rooms with his team. Like, he garners respect just because of the type of player that he is. But do I expect Myles Garrett to be like the vocal, rah-rah guy all the time? No, it's just not him. And we know that about him at this point in his career. So you can sit there and tell me all you want that because he got the big payday, it's time for him to step up and finally be a leader. But it's funny. Like, we talk about this with the Cavs in town, right? I'm going to use a different sport reference here to sort of tie this all together. The Cavs bounced from the playoffs in 5 games against the Pacers, second straight year in the second round they've lost. And the constant conversation around this team is like, well, they're too soft. And it's a fair question. Is toughness, is that something somebody can learn, or is it something that you have to, that's like intrinsic, that you already have in you? I think I think leadership can be learned, but I don't think like the type of leadership that people associate with sports oftentimes is one that is only learned. Like, you're looking for the rah-rah guys. You're looking for the vocal guys. And I'm telling you, like, that's just not Myles. You got to have that in you. And at this point in his career, we would know that he was that guy if he was that guy. I don't think it's the end of the world that he's not there. I get that you want him setting an example for the rest of the team. I can understand and wrap my head around that. But at the end of the day, this is a voluntary program. Myles puts his body on the line every single week. What's important to me as somebody who covers this team is that when he is needed, when he needs to be there at the mandatory things, and when he needs to be there present on Sundays making plays, and the Browns play on Sunday every single game this year, so that term actually works, that he's there dominating, doing his thing, contributing to winning. That's what's most important in my perspective. I get people are going to make a big deal out of it. My pushback on that would just be, you're making a mountain out of a molehill. You're trying to create like people want to get on the media sometimes for like creating false narratives. I'm not going to be that guy. I'm just not. I often think like this specific narrative about, well, this player isn't committed because he's not there. I think that's more of a fan-driven thing than anything that the media does with it. I think fans oftentimes get more upset about that than even the media does. And I'm not going to give any credence to it. I'm not going to lean into it any at all, because I just don't think it's this big deal that he's not there right now. There's a number of players who aren't there right now. And guess what? When Joe Bitonio, I think, has been around the building. And so maybe that makes it a little bit different now. He just doesn't participate in OTAs. He works out and all these different things. But I can guarantee you, like, when Joe Bitonio is out there on the practice field showing his face, no one's going to be like, well, this guy didn't show up to OTAs. He doesn't take it seriously. Like, everybody knows what Joe Bitonio is about. Everybody should know at this point what Myles Garrett's about. I get he's the highest paid player on the team, so you want him to set an example. Him not showing up to OTAs doesn't mean he's not setting an example once he's there. And I can't bang this drum enough. I'm not going to turn this into something that it's not. When he gets there, he'll get there, and I guarantee you people will be listening to him, and I guarantee you he'll give you his all, because that's who Myles Garrett is. If you don't think at this point he cares about legacy and he cares about like how he's remembered, he talked all about it last year after every single loss, how what you're putting on tape is like who you are. I think then I think you just don't understand Myles Garrett. I honestly would say too, it's more concerning to me that somebody like Diontae Johnson wasn't there because Diontae Johnson's on like his last legs as an NFL player. He has been chewed up and actually, I shouldn't even say that because he hasn't been chewed up and spit out. He's done this to himself. This is a world of his own making where he just gets, he's a castaway. His antics, his personality hasn't meshed with a number of teams now where he's been run out of town, and he kind of he's had a hard time landing on his feet since his time in Pittsburgh, and it's a problem created by himself. And now he's getting a chance with the Browns to sort of reestablish himself. I don't know how many opportunities there are for him after this. Now, what I will say is he's been captured via the Browns social media team and some of these videos they've posted throughout the offseason program at the team facility. So he clearly is around. He just wasn't out there on Wednesday's practice. And again, with him being voluntary, it's easier for guys to be like, hey, I'm not going to be here today. I'm sorry, but I'll be there the next day. So it just maybe it's just unfortunate timing that the day he missed was the day the media was there. So of course we all noticed it, but I it's not overly concerning that he's not there. But I would just say, like, if there's anyone I'm pointing to of that group that wasn't present on Wednesday and saying, well, that's concerning, it's Diontae Johnson, because he is quite literally playing for his football life right now, it seems. But again, context is important here. He's been around for other things. He might have just not been there on Wednesday, and we'll see if he's present for next week's practice, which is open to the media on Wednesday as well, and sort of reassess from there. So let's just see how it goes. I don't need to make a big deal of any of these players not being out there, but Myles Garrett especially is just kind of asinine to me. Another episode down with the Dog Pound. Thank you for joining me as always to talk about your favorite football team. And we got more to come this week, including why Joe Flacco was right when it comes to mentoring young players, or his responsibility at least in mentoring young players. Make sure you hit that subscribe button to make Locked On Browns your first listen every day. For your second listen, check out Locked On NFL Scouting, or you can keep it local by checking out Locked On Cavs or Locked On Guardians. Thanks for being an everydayer at the Locked On Podcast Network. I will talk to you again real soon, Cleveland. See ya.